I'm Jody Hand, Mrs. Hand Painted, and in my video today I'll be showing you how to assemble and some tips for painting these interchangeable sign pedestal holders that I have designed the file for. The file is available in my shop on mrshandpainted.com as well as my Etsy shop and on Design Bundles if you purchase files there. This interchangeable pedestal holder slides the tiles in and out, and I have tons and tons of different designs in my shop, so you can purchase different files with different themes there, and they just drop in like this, so you can swap out for the different holidays and seasons. And this is one of my best sellers at craft fairs that I've done, and people buy different tiles for the entire year, so I have a huge setup when I do shows. So this one I'm going to show you how I assemble it, and the file does include the bead trim version and then also the plain trim that's just without the detail. So I'll show you how I assemble both of those, and then I'll give you some painting tips. I start by gathering all of my pieces, and I start out with the base piece. So there's two parts to this, the bottom that is solid and then the one with the cutout plus sign, and then I included a score line for helping you place that evenly so you don't have it off center. And then I take the back piece and one of the three-sided pieces, here I'm doing the bead trim one first, and gluing that. And you can see I'm using this DAP Weldwood glue. It cures really fast and holds quickly, so you don't have to clamp it for very long. Then on that piece I glue on the one that's already glued down, and then I add the second layer of the three-sided square, and I just try to line that up as best as I can, and then I add another layer of glue, and then I'll put the front frame piece. And this way I'm putting the glue on the part that's already on the base instead of on the back of the square, just so that I don't end up putting glue on a side that I don't need it. At this point then I make sure all those are lined up really well, and be careful at the top especially that you don't want those pieces to be pushed in a little bit, because that will prevent you from getting your tile in there. So just make sure that you've pushed those two middle layers out at the top especially, and then I clamp just one on each side, and these are just some clamps I got at the dollar store. And then I add a little bit of glue on the inside edge of the slot for the base, and then I put that small piece in there, and then before that has a chance to really set in place, I will put the glue into the base piece that I previously glued, and I put a pretty healthy amount on this part. This way when I go to put that pedestal into the base, then I don't have any parts that are crooked. I just try to do that as quickly as possible. So I'll go ahead and now I'm just going to glue the other one that is the plain trim. First one has the bead trim and this one's the plain trim, and this one might be just a little bit easier to line up due to not having those little circles, so I can really match up the edges with the base piece, which is especially helpful when you're doing the edges on that one. So you can see like that does have a little bit of give, and you want to make sure that you don't have that pushed in at all so that your tile can still slide in nicely. Again, on that, after the first piece I put the glue on that, and then do the next layer, and then glue and put the top frame layer. And this particular piece I am using a 6mm birch plywood that has an MDF core. In the file I've included as well as the 5mm. This one's the 6mm, and then I do have an 1/8 inch option in there. However, I don't really recommend using the 1/8 inch just for stability purposes, because that base can get a little bit wobbly and you want to have a nice thick material. Again, just putting a generous amount of glue into the base and getting that put in there before the base crisscross piece can set, and you might want to press it down just a little bit. All right, and because I'm using that Weldwood, it does dry pretty quickly, and then I can move on to the painting step and remove those clamps after maybe only about 5 minutes. And I've got my little spray paint booth I've kind of created out of mail, USPS mailboxes. And then I've got an inline fan behind that with my filter. I'm using Montana Gold spray paints for this. This is the Shock Black. And I do start out, I just put a piece of parchment paper down on my surface, and I start out by spraying the base part just to make sure that I get a nice even coverage in all of those little crevices. And I just use that top little circle area to hold it, and just make sure you're doing the underside, and then I will paint the back. Just getting a nice coat. And I will say that black covers the best just because it covers all of the charring. I don't have to sand it ahead of time. You could, of course, just sand all the pieces prior to painting and leave it a natural wood with a varnish on it if you preferred. And I use that top little ring part to just kind of turn it so I don't get too much paint on my hands. And then I'll paint the outside frame part and make sure I get all of those edges so that everything is covered. And then after I've painted everything and it's dried, I usually just give it a nice little light sanding on all the edges just to distress it a little bit. I like that look, but that's just a totally optional aesthetic preference. Again, I'm holding the top again and spray paint the base first to get in all those crevices. And if you're choosing to do white, I like to use the Montana Gold Shock White Pure, but sometimes I'll do 2 coats on that just to get a nice coverage, especially over the edges that are kind of black from the laser. And I promise you it's not leaning, it's just the weird angle that the video, it looked a little slanted, but it's straight up and down. So paint the back first. I kind of hit the side edge for the back side of that frame piece that you can kind of see from the front. And then I'll paint all of the inside as well. You can find the files for these pedestal sign holders on my website, mrshandpainted.com, as well as in my Etsy shop and on Design Bundles, as well as a large variety of different seasonal and holiday interchangeable sign tiles. They're also known as leaning ladder signs, and you can find lots of different designs on my website, as well as Etsy and Design Bundles. Thanks for watching, and subscribe to my channel for more laser cut tutorials.